Gildan Media presents Your Coach in a Box, affordable, life-changing audio programs.
The Debt-Free Spending Plan, an amazingly simple way to take control of your finances once and for all. Written by JoAnneh Nagler. Read by Walter Dixon. Preface. This is an audiobook for people who are in debt and don't know how to live within their means. It's an audiobook for people who spend and don't know where their money is going. It's an audiobook for people who hate numbers, never liked math, and rarely, if ever, balance their checkbook. The Debt-Free Spending Plan is a simple program that will help all of us who have had money trouble stop incurring debt, live on what we earn, and begin building our dreams. Dream building is the most important part of this audio program. Most of us who are pressed by debt or have a lack of clarity about our spending feel we have no opportunity to build anything, let alone our dreams. We go from year to year in a tightly wound survival mode, and we don't feel as if there is ever any financial breathing room to plan for things that are truly meaningful to us. The Debt-Free Spending Plan will help you change all of that. You will learn to live, and live well, on what you earn, on what you're bringing in. You'll learn to use your creativity rather than your credit cards. You'll have a plan to cover your living expenses that addresses all of your needs, including entertainment money, vacation money, and fun money to spend however you like. You'll have a debt repayment plan that won't control your spending or your life. And you won't have to live on canned soup and crackers. You'll finally, and for good, rid yourself of money stress. That sounds terrific, you say. But there are stacks of finance audiobooks out there that promise the same thing, so what's so different about this one? This is what's different about this audiobook. It's simple. It doesn't require that you sift through chapters of high-minded financial advice. It doesn't call for an anthropological dig into your past spending history or your childhood. It doesn't ask for knowledge of any specific software, nor does it belabor you with a history of the credit industry. It assumes you need help right now with your debt and spending issues, and it gives that to you. This audio program offers easy, daily strategies for working with your expenses and needs. It teaches you simple tracking mechanisms that keep you solvent. It gives you foolproof tools to help you when you do the inevitable and overspend. And it does all of that in the first 30 days of using it. Most of us who have debt problems pick up finance and investment books and put them down before we finish the first chapter. These books assume we know too much. They tell us the downside of debt, but don't tell us how to get out of it. Or worse yet, don't help us create tools that will help us stop racking up debt. This audiobook does. It's clear, straightforward, and uncomplicated. It's designed for the 8-year-old in us who froze up in math class and never recovered. In the process of defining our money dilemmas, I've used a few words in this audiobook that are not necessarily grammatically correct or in mainstream usage. You'll hear me refer to a debtor and use debting as an active verb. That's when you're in debt or when you're actively running up debt. You'll also hear me refer to self-deprivation as a term to describe those of us who incur debt for some of our needs and then hold out on other needs, a concept that you may not be familiar with regarding your finances. This is the best way I know to get my point across without using cumbersome language, so let the message serve you. In any helping profession, there has to be an ethic of take what works and dump the rest. I make certain admonitions and particular statements that have been true for me and my clients, but ultimately, you will have to decide what works for you and what doesn't. I've created the Debt-Free Spending Plan as a unique tool, not for a general public, but specifically for those of us who have trouble with debt, trouble with spending, and trouble feeling that we have a grasp on our money. Use what works for you. Leave the rest at the table. In the end, it's not about your adopting something I've created in some A+ way. It's about your using the tools that work for you to get free of money stress and begin enjoying your life again. I have crafted my approach to debt-free living from my personal experience and from those I have worked with. Yet I stand on the shoulders of many who have gone before me and from whom I have gained valuable insights. Authors, individual friends, acquaintances, and support group participants, as well as seminars on money and prosperity. Some are referred to in the text, some I have learned from in principle. Certainly, any spending plan or budget will have similar sections and categories. The Debt debt-free spending plan, however, is original in its approach, like a recipe that uses common ingredients combined uniquely for a new flavor. It is designed to be simple, approachable, and easy to understand. If the debt-free spending plan works well for you, I'd love to hear your stories. Feel free to use the email link on my website at www.debtfreespendingplan.com. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to offer you what I have learned about living debt-free. It's changed my life in amazing ways, and I trust it will change yours too. Introduction. I was 42 years old, standing in the grocery store line with an overfilled basket of food that I was going to pay for with a credit card that had over $28,000 on it. After shopping, I'd go get a cash advance of another $3,000 to pay my rent and bills. My small writing business was tanking. I had 7 other cards that I was juggling, for a grand total of about $80,000, and it would be another few months before I racked up $10,000 more in fees and cash advances. I had hives. I had nightmares. Just looking at the groceries in my basket made me nauseous. I had run up more than $55,000 of my debt publishing a music CD and waiting for a miracle to happen. I'd run up the rest in living expenses, ignoring my business. I had no idea what I was spending. I just put it all on the cards. I'd been in debt before, most of my life actually, but it had never gotten this bad. I couldn't believe I'd let my debt get so out of hand. I couldn't believe I'd become so irresponsible with my money. Standing in the grocery store line, I started to hyperventilate. What the hell had I been thinking? I couldn't breathe. I had to stop debting. I had to find a way to stop my hideous cycle of running up credit card debt, but I didn't know how, and I didn't have a clue where to begin. Sound familiar? Debt is a killer. It's a drag on our hearts and minds, an energy hog, and a full-time guilt-making machine. It leads us in only one direction, down, into lives of worry, fear, and desperation. Even a little bit of debt can cause enough grief to agonize over, our heads swirling in sleeplessness when we should be resting, our stomachs tied in knots whenever we think about our finances. We know, as anyone who has ever been in debt knows, the downside of being in over our heads financially. It's uncomfortable. It's painful. We can feel it right now in our gut, and we don't even have to conjure up the details of it. Most likely it's caused us to stay up nights, grind our teeth, sweat bullets, overeat, have indigestion, break out in hives, or some other version of physical or spiritual discomfort. We know what it's doing to us, but the worst part about debting is that it's not just exacting psychological and physical payments for what we've done in the past. The horrendous worry comes from the fact that we are still doing it. We are in debt, we keep debting, and we don't see a way out. Our expenses are greater than our income, we say. So what else can we do? We can even argue that we feel okay about it. It's just a board game. What's the big deal? I front myself money, then I pay it back later. But we all know that being in debt does not produce feelings of peace and well-being. If we've dug ourselves a hole, debting against our home equity line, running up credit cards, or project debting, as I did, these rationalizations just make our guilt and self-loathing worse. We can get philosophical and argue that the debting machine of credit produces income for our economy, that it's just the way things get done in our cultural timeline, and we're just a cog in the wheel. We have to use credit cards. We have to be a part of the machine. And even while we vent such justifications, we take no pleasure in being in debt, and we surely do not feel industrious for having accrued it. And most of the time, we have no idea how we're going to pay all that money back. So instead of feeling engaged and part of our lives, we find ourselves yearning for the proverbial one day, when we might, 1, make twice as much money as we're making now, 2, get bailed out by an inheritance, 3, get a big payoff from a minor car accident, 4, find a big cache of money by the side of the road, or depending on the magnitude of the amount we owe, 5, escape to Bogota for a lifelong visit. One day makes us feel trapped today, and a lot of the joy we could be experiencing in daily life vaporizes into worry over debt. We may have tried credit consolidators, borrowing from parents or friends, or getting an extra job to pay off creditors, and even when we have been able to zero those balances out, a year, 2 years, 4 years later, we're in debt again. How does this happen, we lament? This is how it happened. We got ourselves into debt for one simple reason. We have no spending plan. We have no idea how much it really costs us to live, what we're able to live on, and what wants and needs we can afford. We think budgets are constricting and want no part of them, but our lack of spending clarity causes us even greater grief. We're afraid that if we look deeply into our finances, we'll never have another luxury or fulfilled want for the rest of our lives. The debt-free spending plan will help you end all of that. It will help you take simple steps to stop running up debt, live within your means, and start building something that's meaningful to you. It will offer you guideposts to funding what you want, as well as what you need. It's easy to use and specifically designed for people who tune out when it comes to their money. It does not require that you learn a special computer program. It does not require that you live on noodles and toast. It does not require any special skills besides the use of a calculator and basic addition and subtraction. And it doesn't matter whether you make $14,000 or $14 million. If you can add, you can use the debt-free spending plan to live free from debt for the rest of your life. I'm not kidding. If you've had enough of the pain that comes from living in debt, then listen on. If you want to live free of worry over money and start choosing where you spend your cash, then listen on. This book is for everyone, everywhere who has believed that money wisdom belongs to a special class of people with a special class of skills. It doesn't. It's yours for the taking right here in the debt-free spending plan. Chapter 1. The Heart of Our Debting Issues. In the past 2 decades, a plethora of books on personal finance have hit our bestseller lists. Almost all of them tell us to get out of debt, to live on a budget, and to invest. They deliberate the reasons why debt is a bad investment. That is, we pay much more for products and services because of interest and inflation. But these books almost never tell us how, specifically, to get out of debt and how to stop going into debt. They tell us that having a budget is a necessity, but they don't tell us how to create and live by one, a realistic daily one. Some straight-talking authors give readers monthly bottom lines and even delineate spending categories, but nobody, I mean nobody, gives a practical, daily strategy to help us stop our compulsiveness and live within our means. Most finance books tell us to make investments, and that's all very nice and neat for those of us who believe we are responsible financially or who are motivated by money math. But for those of us who are already in debt or are in spending trouble, this kind of advice is disastrous. Invest? Who are you kidding? We can barely make our rent and credit card bills each month. We owe the IRS 2 years of back taxes. Retirement? We shrink at the very word. Pay ourselves first? In what dream world? Budget? Come on. We can't bring ourselves to write down on paper what we already think we know, that we don't have enough to live on, and we're carelessly overspending anyway. So those of us who need financial coaching the most tune out, turn off, and close these books for good, almost as soon as we open them. And if we're in the cycle of debt, entitlement, addictive overspending, guilt, and regret, these financial admonitions most often make us feel more of what we already feel, that our finances are always a disaster, so it's best to put our heads in the sand and grind through this money experience as blindly as possible. The debt-free spending plan is not a budget. The debt-free spending plan is not a traditional budget. It's not a shortage-inducing tool. It's a simple plan to show you, first, how you are currently spending your money, and then, more importantly, asks you how you want to spend what you have. This audiobook asks you to write some things down. It asks you to use your calculator. It asks you to be realistic about paying your bills, like rent, mortgage, and health insurance, first. And then it helps you create a daily living expense plan that includes all of your needs, and even some of your wants. It helps you nail down the octopus arms of your unaddressed debts, Chapter 6, and begin paying them back, even if it's just $5 a month. It helps you address your living expenses first, so you can learn to live on your income without deprivation, without living for your creditors. In doing these few simple tasks, you'll begin to get clarity, and with clarity comes more money. I've coached many people, helping them create their personal debt-free spending plans, and each has had some real small or large money miracle as a result. It's almost as if life were saying, "Okay, Joe, you're taking good care of the money you've got now, so we're going to give you some more. We trust you to use it well." Do the debt-free spending plan and see for yourself. More responsibility with your money breeds a greater capacity to handle more of it. Living well on what you earn. Here's the crux of the argument. When you learn that you really can afford what you need and want, and you can support yourself without going into debt, you will feel better about yourself. You will stop the roller coaster of self-abuse and self-hatred and start building a new relationship with yourself and your money, a debt-free relationship that builds pride and self-respect. The debt-free spending plan may require that you visit the bank a few more times in the first few months. It will require that you set aside time at the end of each month to add and subtract some numbers. And for the price of a little time and some jotted down numbers, you'll begin to get free. The promise of the debt-free spending plan is very simple. You'll get free of money stress, and you'll live more richly and more fully. You'll make choices about how you want to live and how you want to spend. You'll have a plan to address each of your debts. You'll relax, and probably the biggest payoff I've seen in myself and my coaching clients is, you will no longer fight about money in your relationships. You'll have a spending plan to address your bills, monthly payments, your daily needs, groceries, cleaners, medical copays, your wants, entertainment, vacations, fun money, and will actually have some reserves. Yes, you'll start saving, even if it's just $10 a month for things you like, things you enjoy, things you want. And you'll do all that in the first 30 days of using the debt-free spending plan. Even if this sounds impossible to you, if your finances are in such a disastrous state that you can't imagine being at peace with your money, the debt-free spending plan will start to work for you. The spending plan doesn't care if you're afraid, rebellious, skeptical, or angry. If you do the plan, it will work. Every time. What this audiobook will do for you. The debt-free spending plan is not an audiobook to teach you how to invest. It's not an audiobook that will tell you the ins and outs of credit lines or credit ratings. It's not a program that's meant to educate you about the overall American financial situation or world financial picture. It's not an audiobook to help convince you of the spirituality of money or how to attract it, though by living debt-free you will automatically do just that. Similarly, the debt-free spending plan is not a pie-in-the-sky, put your spiritual needs first approach to money. It's not a plan that asks you to visualize your way into prosperity. It addresses first what feels most realistic to you: rent, food, living expenses. When I was $90,000 in debt, facing bankruptcy, and my business was falling apart, the last thing I wanted to hear was an admonition to put my spiritual and educational needs first. I needed to figure out how to live. I needed to figure out how to pay for my housing, my health care, my utilities, and to deal with the creditors at my back. I'm not a believer in advocating that risky for debtors proposition, do what you love and the money will follow. While the premise is sound enough for people who have good money skills, do something that's meaningful to you, get paid for it, live within your means, and build on that. For debtors, this advice can be disastrous. That's because we debtors will twist this encouraging adage to mean we should spend money we don't have to do what we love, and then God or the universe or the great magical money machine in the sky will relieve us of our financial burden, our debt, because we went into debt for something we love. We use this admonition to gamble, running up our credit lines. I've done it, and I know dozens more people who've done it too, with disastrous results. So, the debt-free spending plan will not ask you to engage in magical thinking and unfounded financial risks in the name of spiritual prosperity. It is not a spiritual principle to incur debt in order to do what you love. The debt-free spending plan will teach you to take steady steps in building your dreams and to fully fund your personal, familial, entrepreneurial, and artistic ventures as you undertake them. That's a hard pill to swallow for those of us who are used to using debt to fund our ventures. We want to pay off now, and we want it to occur simply because we took the risk of trying something we believe in. But using credit this way is risking our solvency, and it's just another justification for incurring debt, this time with a spiritual spin. Don't fall for it. There's another way, and it's infinitely more peaceful. Most personal finance books give some detailed version of one or all of the previous topics, useful in my opinion in the hands of someone who's not debting. But for those of us who are running up debt, or who are living in cycles of it, the first order of business is to learn how to live solvent. That means living with the money we have, each and every month. It means learning how to live in the black month after month, until this way of earning and spending becomes an ingrained part of our very being. How did I get into this mess? Answering the question, how did I get into debt trouble, is murky terrain for most of us. First, we're often in more trouble with money than we like to admit. We may already know that we have a tendency to overspend or be vague about our finances, and we probably don't have a realistic grasp on what it costs us to live, or the total amounts we owe. That's all normal stuff when we begin learning to live debt-free. But the heart of our issues, the real trouble, if we're honest about it, is that we keep running up debt even after we know we're in over our heads. We're still using credit cards to live even after we've glimpsed the impending financial disasters ahead. We don't like to take responsibility for the messy, or even disastrous, state of our finances, and we have a trunk full of reasons that debting has been necessary. We feel compelled to debt, even though we know it's causing us harm. And even when we pay off all our cards and begin debting again with the best of intentions, that is, a promise to pay off all our cards each month, we end up back in terrible, escalating debt. So how did we get into these nasty debt habits in the first place? We're going to take a look at that right now. The rise of the credit culture. I used to joke in the 1980s, when my debt troubles began, that if I had it, I spent it, and if I didn't, I spent it anyway. When I was 20 years old, ATM cards were just appearing, and only a few businesses took credit cards. You couldn't buy groceries with credit cards, but there were certainly enough credit options for people to begin getting into debt, and I did. Now we can buy anything on credit. We can even run up cash advances and pay our mortgages with a card. In other words, those of us from age 20 to 50 are the first generations in our history who have had ready access to credit since we reached adulthood. With that development came the resulting freedom to extend our income beyond its reasonable reach, and that has radically impacted the way we buy. This is not our parents' doing. This is not something our teachers neglected to teach us. We did this. This is our part. Our generations invented this system, thought it was incredibly peachy, and we promoted it until the cows came home. Who is everywhere you are? Your credit card company. What is priceless? Whatever your credit card can buy. So what have we done with the illustrious spending freedom that's been bestowed upon us? This is what we've done. We've created a country full of people of all ages with financial disasters on their hands, with more money pressure than is reasonable for any one human being to handle. In with structure, out with stringency. Our misuse of credit freedom reminds me of the disaster in class scheduling that my high school implemented in 1974. I was a freshman, and our progressive superintendent decided to institute what was called modular scheduling, an open class scheduling program in which students had huge blocks of free time to schedule as they wished. We were to use, at our own leisure, learning labs, resource centers, and the library. All we had to do was make a list at the beginning of the day of where we were supposed to be at each hour. And, this was the kicker, we had entire mornings, whole afternoons, and sometimes whole days completely free of assigned classes to attend. You can guess what happened. A huge number of teenagers started spending entire days smoking pot in the woods behind the school. Having no structure was okay for a handful of kids who had amazing self-discipline and well-developed skills. But for a lot of my high school peers, it was a debacle that tanked rather quickly. The same has been true, in my opinion, for our generation regarding credit. Structureless and free to run up as much debt as we can qualify for, we've done just that. We're the high schoolers smoking behind the school. Without any limits, we've failed to hold ourselves accountable. Having no structure has not been good for us. In fact, it's been a disaster. We're clueless about how much we spend, how much we need, what we can afford, and how to spend wisely. We're not accountable to ourselves or our creditors, and we have no idea how to live in peace with our money. We need structure, not stringency, but structure. We need a structure that's strong, yet flexible enough for real-life money concerns, for the actual items that come up in a week or a month of spending. And we need enough flexibility in our structure for the real-life financial glitches that come just from being human. Am I a debtor? Probably one of the hardest things to admit to ourselves is that we're debtors. What's a debtor? A debtor is someone who uses unsecured debt to fund living expenses, purchases, needs, wants, and even emergencies. What's unsecured debt? Credit cards, lines of credit, department store cards, borrowing from friends or family. In short, any purchase, borrowing, or loan that indebts us to another person or institution, with interest or without, in which we owe money that we do not currently have. A secured debt, by contrast, is a house or a car, an item that, if given back to the financial institution that offered the loan, would erase the debt. That's a theoretical definition. These days, even a house or a car may not be considered a secured debt. Houses purchased on interest-only loans before the market dropped are no longer secured because the house is worth less than the amount owed. Debtors who refinance and live on their equity are essentially debting against their secured loan. Giving back a car may or may not erase the debt, depending on the bank's or the dealer's default policies. Financed refrigerators, furniture, TVs, computer equipment, and household appliances all qualify as unsecured debt. So, are we debtors? Do we use credit cards? Do we use department store cards? Do we borrow from parents, siblings, or friends? Then we're debtors. Do we use credit card lines or credit agencies? We're debtors. Do we spend any money that we currently do not have? We're debting. It doesn't matter what it's for. Is it for a new business? For art? A spiritual quest? Emergencies? We're still debtors. Debt doesn't care about the reasons. All debt cares about is one thing. Do you owe? Owing is the cause of our financial stress. We owe more than we have, more than we earn, more than we can possibly reasonably pay back on our current income and still meet our daily needs. So say it aloud. I am a debtor. Then write it down. Try it in front of the mirror. Have the courage to look yourself in the eye and say, I am a debtor, I'm in debt. If you don't know how you're going to pay your debt back, say that too. I don't know how I'm going to pay back the money I owe. Saying it out loud may sound daunting, but admitting this is the first step in moving toward a solution. If you have no debt now, but you've had to crawl out of debt at least twice in your life, say it. I'm a debt cycler. I go in and out of debt. If you're not in debt, but you don't know where your money goes or you regularly overspend, then say that out loud. It doesn't matter what the level of your financial distress is. The debt-free spending plan can help. Great. Good job. You've been honest with yourself. That's enough. Now, what are we going to do about it? We really can fund our needs. We all have a right to enough good food, enough decent clothing, enough to pay our bills, enough for entertainment and a vacation, because that's what makes for a healthy, stress-free life. And, of course, enough for a small pleasure or two. Those are the financial components that make for an engaged, productive living experience. Most of us with debt trouble have never learned these skills, so we have to learn them now. Time to get started. Your psychological spending issues will not stand in your way. The first thing I realized in creating the debt-free spending plan was that I had some issues about the way I spent my living expenses money. A decade ago, I was spending over $800 a month on groceries, not including dining out. Now, I like to cook, but I have a lean body frame and a healthy eating style, and I could clearly see that it was probably not possible for me to eat $800 worth of groceries by myself each month, in addition to dining out. I was having a great time shopping and a lovely time cooking, and I was giving away a lot of food, as well as letting plenty of good food go bad. More important, I only had about $950 each month to live on after I paid my bills, so $800 for food was way too much money to be spending on one expense item. I was shopping out of habit, and it made me feel taken care of.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?